Good morning, everybody. This is Tony Lee on the sheckiiville podcast, and today I am very excited to have someone that I haven't connected with since I left New York, but have been watching his podcast and everything he's doing with his company. Adam, welcome to the show. How are you, my man?
Tony Lee, thanks for having me on, my man. How's it going?
It's going good. It's cloudy and a bit rainy in LA, which is new, but can't complain.
Yeah, I'm in New York. I'm out in the burbs here in Long Island, looking good. We had a beautiful weekend here, which was nice, coming after a few cold weekends. And you know what, man? Just keeping everyone outside and happy. It'll distract you from what's really happening out there in the news, and
Yeah.
just spending more time with the family and staying close together, man.
Love it, love it. So, introduce yourself. I have your title, founder, managing director at NHP Talent Group. But talk to us. What's going on with you right now?
Absolutely, yeah. So thank you for the intro. I'm the managing director and founder of NHP Talent Group. We're a boutique staffing firm here in New York. I work with startups, brands, pretty much everyone in between in marketing and advertising. And fun fact about Tony, I think you were when we first met. I really think, and I have to go back to it. I think you were the first candidate that I ever met in person to talk to.
No
That's a fun
kidding.
fact.
I love
And I
it.
remember where we met. We met at a coffee shop right outside of not Union Square. What's the other one? Bryant Park. We were right by
Yeah.
Bryant Park over there. I was working for a company called Onward Search, and you and I had a great chat and just kicked it off, man. So it's also pretty cool to see your journey in the world of digital and social marketing, and just happy to be on the show, dude.
Dude, I can't believe you remember that. And yeah, man, you were so fundamental in helping me understand what branding was for employers and what I needed to do. And like, you gave me some humbling advice that you could have been like, dude, like, you just started this business, man. Like, chill the fuck out. And you said it in a very nice way and made me like really evaluate. So, like that advice has carried over tons. And
I
yeah, man.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest understated things is I really feel like candidates, especially out of college when they can, like, really listen to recruiters because I got to tell you, man, you are one of the people that is fundamental in how I learned how to brand myself.
I appreciate that, and I think it comes from, I think it's safe to say at this point, the reason I'm a good recruiter, especially in the world of marketing and advertising, is because I did it for 15 years. So when I
Yeah.
talk to candidates, it's coming from real life experience. I've been in their shoes before. I've been at these type of companies, and I get it. So I like to share, and ultimately, it comes down to putting people in a position to succeed. Right. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you want to kind of pull out their, if someone is not being truly self-aware about their strengths, their weaknesses, their direction in their career, you have to help them get to that point because there's no way that they're going to do it on their own.
Yeah, no, that's
So, but how do you do it in a tactful way where you're not talking down to them? You're talking with them. You're helping them out.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and I think you were definitely helped me, gave me some interviews, and then I took the job as Zimmerman and moved away from New York. But yeah, since then, we've kind of passively kept in touch and saw what's going on LinkedIn, and I wanted to have you on my show for sure because I basically didn't create content for about 2 years. I had all this equipment and I just stopped for so many bullshit reasons and excuses. And I saw you doing your thing live consistently. And I was like, I'm going to start listening. And I'm looking at your guests going like, fuck, I love these people and I love the content. I love what you're doing. And, it inspired me. So, what I was like, what's he using? I saw the stuff, what you were doing, asked you a couple of questions, and then I'm like, did
Yeah,
my own
man.
research. And here I am. So I wanted to do this to say first, thank you for kicking my ass into gear when I needed to, because I think during the pandemic, I think I took a little bit moment of going like, well, what's going on in the world? Like I need to digest, and I'm like, no, you don't. You know what's going on. You're doing fine. You are
Yeah, you're smart,
blessed.
man.
You have a job, and you need to take advantage of this opportunity because this is what I think. Like, if I'm not taking advantage of this, then it's an insult to all the other people that would be wanting to work and do what they're doing that can't. So,
Well said. Yeah, man.
I really appreciate that. And this is a good segue to talking about the podcast and what you're doing and how you got started and all that good stuff.
Yeah, man. So thank you for that, and I appreciate it. And it's so interesting. It's kind of validation. I've had a lot of people sending me messages saying, "Hey, man, I see what you're doing with the live show. I see you doing the podcast. You're putting out tons of content. It's inspiring me." And I'm like, "That's cool. I like that." You know what? And no, and listen, anybody who says otherwise is lying, man. It feels good.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it sounds cliche and everything, but if I could help one person be inspired like yourself, I know I'm doing a good job, right?
Yeah.
And it's really true, right? And I put it out there, but it takes work. It takes lots of work. So, a little bit of background. So, recruiter by trade, and my network is truly my net worth. And I had this idea back in January of 2019. I said, you know what? I see all these podcasts coming out there. It's something I want to do. It's something I know that if I put my heart into, I could do it well. So let's just give it a shot. And my first podcast was a networking call with a dude out of Milwaukee named Quentin Harris, Quentin alums. And we just recorded a networking call, just how two people connect for the first time. And I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. Let's give it a shot. And then I said, all right, let me dig in and do this the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the podcast was born. My first, I'd say 15, 20 guests were people that I knew closely in my network that were mainly recruiters. There were people integral in my career. So I wove that story in too. But ultimately, the spine of the show is a couple things. One, the word for me that stands out in my life is tenacity, right?
Yeah.
It's everything I do. It's the reason I do everything. It's what drives me. So I wanted to bring that out in all my guests. And the second thing was, I wanted to shine a spotlight on all these amazing professionals in my network that could add value. And that's really what the show is about, right?
Yeah.
So it's career stories plus adding value, actionable insights. And then the show kind of took a turn right after episode 50. I had Claude Silver on, actually right before. And I started to do a little bit more like life story, human interest stories.
Yeah.
But it all kind of tied into the career element a little bit. And that's when the show really started to take off around episode 45. Listenership almost doubled, downloads. And now we're almost approaching episode 100. I'm working on my 100th guest. I had a tremendous booking last week. I have coming up in a few weeks the 54th governor of the state of New York, David Patterson.
Wow.
Will be on my show.
Love it.
Absolutely incredible to have a guest of that caliber coming on. And episode 100, I'm working on that one.
Yes,
and then I also have the live show. I got access to LinkedIn Live in November 2019. And I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. And it brought out something kind of fun for me. I always feel like I wanted to be like a radio host. I grew up listening to Howard Stern, somebody I love. And we're not talking about, the porn star stripper Howard Stern. We're talking about modern day Howard Stern, where he'll sit down with the likes of Tom Brady, Hillary Clinton, all these celebs, and have like 1-2 hour uninterrupted conversations with them. And it's just a conversation.
No,
it's not a formatted list.
He's so understated as somebody who just knows how to talk and gets stuff from people that like they are not comfortable sharing otherwise. Like, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, and that's what inspired me. So the live show's fun. It's a tough game because, in my opinion, I think it's a little bit oversaturated with the live. I think LinkedIn and some other platforms make it very easy, and they kind of gave it out to everybody. And some people kind of use it as a throwaway. Like I've seen some real shitty, live streams, and I put work into my guest curation, my production, my preparation. And it's frustrating, you're trying to grow an audience and, the numbers go up, the numbers go down.
Yeah.
But consistency is key, man. Whatever you do in content creation.
No, I love the fact that you were saying like, hey, I'm almost up to 100. I see so many people. I'm on my 6th episode right now, and I can't wait to get to 100. But I know some people are going to be asking me, like, dude, like, are you okay with the growth? I'm like, I could care none of that. I'm enjoying this journey right now, and the process is so important. And
so. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but Jordan Paris. If you're familiar with Jordan Paris, he's a young up and comer. Just in life, he's got a killer top rated podcast, Growth Mindset University. He had me on his show early on, which was incredible. He's got super high caliber. Yes, and he said to me, he's like, dude, just get to 50.
Yeah.
He's like, get to 50. And that's a huge accomplishment because most people quit after like 15, 20 episodes because they underestimate how much work that goes into it. We underestimate the amount of work that goes into a proper podcast.
Yeah.
And I took that to heart. And the other thing is too, man, like, my shows are anywhere from, 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the guest. They're long conversations because I feel that's my best format. There's other people that bang out like daily 10, 15-minute shows, either with guests or by themselves. So there's like different, you have to figure out what works for you. You really do. Like, I'm not the type that's going to sit here on a pedestal and preach for 10 minutes every day and put out a show.
Yeah,
I don't drop knowledge like that. My knowledge comes in long form, and you just got to find what works for you and keep it up. But also, you have to weigh the time level of effort versus return.
Yeah.
So I talk a lot about, people ask me, are you making money? I go, no, well, it's not an ad game for me. You need to be cruising at the 25,000 guests per show level to even make a real penny on it. Not to say that you can't get some sponsors in there, local sponsors. That's fair, but real money. We're talking real money.
Yeah.
But for me, the podcast is branding and biz dev. And I generate, I could generate a client that can make me 100 grand a year. I think
Yeah.
that's a payoff.
No, for sure. I mean, I think one of the common ties that you and I having, listened to Gary Vee early on in our careers, and one of the things that he always says, like, what's the ROI of a basketball to you, but what's the ROI of a basketball to LeBron? And like, what is the long, like, don't look at such in short term. And I think for something like this, people have even asked me, like, okay, Tony, you're employed, you barely have any following, why are you doing this and putting all this time and all this kind of stuff? I'm like, well, first, my personal background, I came back from a journalistic background, right? I created a newspaper when I was in college, and I miss that part of me, right? So this is,
Yeah, you enjoyed it back then. That was like a passion and an art for you, right?
oh yeah, I mean, I think the other state to it is when I made that into a business, when I took it from passion to a business, it basically became 100% business and 0% of everything that I love doing. And it was a very humbling moment for me when I feel like, okay, you have to earn it to be able to get to that level. And I've always wanted to return back to something that's followed in my journalism background, and I love chatting with people. I love this part, and this allows me to get to do it. So I'm with you. I'm not here to drop like 7-minute podcasts about how to get your ass in the morning and do something. I want to chat with people, get the conversation going, and
100%.
Yeah, man. I'm on. When I talked to, I think on my second episode when I was talking to Brian, and he was talking to me about some entrepreneurship stuff, and it brought me back to another part. And then on episode 3, when I was talking with Coach, and Coach gave me some insight that was
Coach who?
Coach Ball Game. He does youth baseball, and he basically said this. He had a goal. He wants to be the first person for every little leaguer to, or he wants to be the one to introduce baseball to all little leaguers worldwide,
That's cool.
Not just U.S. And
I dig it.
It refreshed me. It's like, wow, here's this guy thinking big, right? Like, so many people don't think that big. He's like, maybe I want to be a coach. Maybe I want to make a paycheck. No, he has that goal. That stuff carries over to my job. I don't think people know that value of the growth
100%.
that I have that comes with it. So it's like, yeah, I'm employed and I'm not trying to get another job. I'm doing this for intellectual benefit, and this has career benefits, and it's giving me a bunch of inspirations and connections that are, I think, carrying over nicely to my employer.
That's awesome. I love to hear that.
Yeah, so, speaking of kind of job markets and employers, what I would love to hear from you as somebody in the space, like, what are you seeing from the market? What are some companies doing? And what do you think some companies are also doing a little bit foolishly?
In regards to talent acquisition?
Yeah.
It's interesting, too. So it's tough because a lot of companies are laying off people because they have to.
Yeah.
I feel that
totally
generally speaking, there's a lot of companies that are using this opportunity to trim the fat in a good way. Mm-hmm. And also there's a lot of companies that are using it as an excuse to increase their bottom line. I mean, I think there's a lot of companies out there that are extremely profitable for a number of years. And you mean to tell me that, a little blip in the radar, you're cutting off, 25% of your workforce? I mean, I understand that you're forecasting a bit, you're looking at a downturn economy, you're looking, far ahead. But 25%, you mean you can't keep these people on payroll? Right? Mm. It's crazy, right? But it really comes down to a couple things. And one, how do you treat your current employees during this time? Mm-hmm. Are you flexible and fair with them? Are you understanding? Are you empathetic? Are you taking care of them? Are you taking care of their families? And, when it comes down to a talent acquisition perspective, it's about communication, right? It's really about, managing, if you have people in process and for some reason you have a job on hold or you're not hiring right now, tell them. Don't keep people hanging, man. That lasts forever. That's your reputation, man. That's the word in the market about you.
Mm-hmm. No, that reputation part. I mean, I forgot which of the accounting companies, but I remember there were for a long time promoting that they didn't lay off anybody in 2008. And I think that reputation about employers and what kind of corporate it works for, and totally get the bottom line aspect of it. It's not like I'm blind to it, but there's something to be said about like that place during the pandemic. I remember them for what they did to their employers versus anything else that's relevant to how you be their customer or their employee.
Yeah, like what do you want to be remembered by, right? Do you want to be that company that literally laid off half your workforce and you're like I might be misquoting here, but didn't Uber, like they laid off like a whole bunch of people, right? They laid off like 25% of the workforce and then they got like $174 million funding.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, listen, we don't know the details. I mean, there's a lot to it, but it doesn't look, the optics on that are not
Exactly,
great.
exactly. And then like Airbnb, they had to lay off people, but like one thing I love that they did was they literally created a site and portal for all the people that they had to let go, and so that they can market themselves and say like they were part of the Airbnb group. And I was like, huh, that was interesting. Like, I'm
Hmm.
sure like they could have, they could have easily done, sure, or like a lot of people, that was the first one that I saw as a company just proactively doing something, at least even if it has a huge PR spin to it, which it obviously did, but it at least said like, we wish you the best. And I love that about when companies do stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, and the way that I mean, I read the whole document and how they
Hmm.
were treating them, and that is really the right way to do it. I mean, I've seen people getting laid off on mass emails,
Oh,
mass
no way.
group Zoom calls. Right? I understand Zoom, right? Because it can't be a person, but a group Zoom call.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really it's insane, right? It's insane.
Hmm.
Take the time to talk to each human being one on one,
No,
no matter
and
what they are in an organization, right? Like,
yeah.
you want to be on a Zoom call and see the 10 other people there that are getting let go, also the 30 other people. Come on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, wow, I can't imagine if I'm ever invited to a Zoom call and like if it was all the people that are also getting laid off and that's the announcement, I would be
Right, getting
livid.
sandbagged, getting
Oh,
sandbagged on a Zoom call. Come on, man.
yeah, that I'd be so livid. But I think you bring up a very interesting point here, which is the culture of a company, and I think you as a talent acquisition person, you contribute a lot to it because you're obviously looking at not only the hard skills but the soft skills and the EQ skills to fit. Now,
Right.
what have you noticed from really good companies with really strong HR backgrounds versus that they don't have something in HR and you're like, huh, this is very noticeable and something that you are, if you wanted to advise to them, it's like, hey, this is not the way to go. Like, what are some of the things that you are seeing that HR people are doing really right?
Well, it really comes down to the organization versus the individual. I mean, I really think it really starts with, there's some companies that are in their early stages that who have not developed a proper talent acquisition process, and that's where I come in to really lay that groundwork. And there's an important piece that I always say whenever I have that first meeting that people know but they don't really think about. Your recruiter, HR, whoever is talking to that potential candidate, that's the first touch point that candidate is going to have with your company,
Yeah.
right? They're a brand ambassador. So your recruiter, your HR people, those are ambassadors. They have to be able to tell that story. They have to be able to articulate. They have to be able to sell your company to that candidate.
Hmm.
And I think it's really important. And I think it's very underrated that people think that they could cheap out or just kind of half-ass the recruitment process. But the process is everything. I mean, think about it. If you have a smooth transition from interview into onboarding, into hiring, that sets you up for success.
Yeah.
Dude, I've seen companies, I'm not even shitting you, man. I've seen companies, and I'm not going to name and shame here,
Hmm.
where someone gets hired and they've been through a kind of a rough hiring process, too many phone calls, too many interviews, too many times coming back in. I've seen where people come in for interviews, and this happened to me too when I was interviewing, where the person I was supposed to meet was out for the day. They couldn't even communicate that.
Oh,
And I've also seen something where someone was starting on day one and they didn't have a computer set up. Their hiring manager was out at a client or off or something. Like, these are little things. These are
yeah.
101. I mean, these are basics that need to get done. I mean, imagine starting a job on day one and you get in and you have no computer. Your hiring manager's not there. Like, what kind of tone does that set? Little
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. No.
Communicating. Like, for example, we made an offer today, right? We made an offer on a candidate.
Woo.
She accepted the offer, which is fantastic. And the thing I did immediately after I sent her the offer letter is I went back to all the active candidates immediately within the first 10 minutes of doing that. And I told them, hey, we just extended the offer. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. A, I don't want to forget. B, I want to be timely. And that's the way you do it, man. No one wants
Yeah.
to be left hanging.
No, for sure. And I think, there's in my experiences when getting hired, it's funny when I left some of those companies, it's like some of that hiring process was a foreshadowing and I just didn't know it yet. And
Right.
after going through that a lot, I think it has constantly gotten me better on where I know I'm going to fit in long term or not. And it's so the little things, right? It's like, are they late to the interview? How are they asking the questions? And
Are they prepared?
oh yeah, no, for sure. And it's so funny because I've been on the other side too, where we had to interview like 15 people, and I'm not getting the right fit. So I'm getting frustrated. I got all this client deliverables, so I've been on that side. But I also like had to constantly remember, it's like, no, like even if that person doesn't get it, they could then refer someone or be like, dude, and yeah.
Referrals, I mean, that's one thing I talk to other recruiters about. Sorry, I cheaped out on my tripod. It sucks. One thing I talk to recruiters about, I'm not going to digress down the recruiting angle, is, referrals are the lifeblood.
Yeah.
Referrals are the lifeblood of my industry, man. And people always forget to ask. Like, if I'm talking to a candidate and either they pass or they're not right, and we have a good rapport, I'm like, hey, Tony, I'm sorry that this role is not right for you. We had a good conversation. I'm glad we connected. Now that you know a little bit more about it, this is a great opportunity. Do you know anyone that'd be great for this role? And you'd be shocked how many people give good referrals, because now they know the role. They have a friend, they have a buddy, they have a colleague, they have a coworker, they have somebody on the market, and they want to share it and pay it forward.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I love it. So, let's transition a little bit over back to podcast, because what I want to talk about is the guests, right? Like, what's your process originally, especially, someone who's starting right now, right? Like, how did you start? How did it become? And like, where's it at right now?
Well, I think I really take a lot of pride in curating and booking my guests, because there's a theme, there's a story, there's a caliber. And caliber is interesting because caliber doesn't always relate to how many followers they have or how big their audience is. Caliber is the quality of their story and message that I want to share to my guests.
Oh, I love it.
And I think that really is true, because I've had, and this is fascinating. I mean, we could digress and talk more about like the way people are growth hacking on LinkedIn with engagement pods and building up these fake followings. Mm-hmm. I've had people on my show with 500,000 followers that have gotten less downloads for their show than somebody with 1,000 followers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that just goes to show that the people with 1,000 followers have a more engaged, rabid following that want to see all their content on all platforms.
Yeah.
And you can't replicate that.
Yeah.
So, for me, the initial guests were a combination of folks in the industry that I know, some that I don't know, but I liked what they were doing. So there's back and forth communication about, hey, I got a show, tell me a little bit more about it. And it's never been a hard thing. It's never really been a hard thing. There's only been one guest, my episode 100 guest that I'm working on. We all know who he is, and I'm trying to, lock him in. But I reach, right? Like, I reach like up to episode 50. I mean, I was doing a lot of outreach myself.
Yeah.
Now, you'll see once you get going, and your name starts to get on a list of podcasts out there, I get a lot of inbound. And it's really hard for me to tell people no, because I don't like saying no to people, but you have to, because people reach out and they do not do something very important. They're very me on their outreach, mm-hmm. and they're not saying why they think they would be good for your show specifically.
Yeah, I like it.
And I really doubt if they've even listened to a show.
Yeah.
So I grill them in a nice way. I'm like, hey, man, I appreciate you reaching out. A, why do you think you'd be good for my show? And B, have you listened to my show? What do you like about it?
Yeah.
And I could tell a generic answer. I mean, you and I both know when someone blows smoke up their ass,
mm-hmm,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that shows lack of effort, So my show's been a mix of inbound, outbound, and then I took a fun little turn recently. I've had some sports guests on my show, which are really fun to tell their story, switching it up a bit. I got a politician, as I mentioned before, coming on. Mm-hmm. Episode 99. I got some great authors in the field of the future of work.
Love it.
But it's a mix of curating. It's work.
Yeah.
Right? It's work. I do a lot of prep. I do a lot of work. So I want to make sure that the guests I'm having on is good quality.
Yeah. No.
And mixing it up, right? Because you have to have an entertaining guest.
Yeah, no, and I love the curation part, because, like, to me, the people that are on my episodes not only have, like, a personal meaning of why I want to chat with them, but also, like, there's a theme that is going, 100%. Right? Like, David is someone that I knew worked in the ad industry, got kicked out when he didn't really need to get kicked out, and then started his own thing, and then is thriving, right? And had great thoughts, and I love that connection, and I wanted that spirit in there, right? It's like not giving up. And then, Coach Ballgame, who started a new thing. Like Brian, who started Asian Hustle. You, who's inspired me to do all. There's a theme, and I'm curating this. Yeah, and I take so much pride in that too.
And let's flip it around the other side too. I book guests that I want to talk to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I book guests because here's the deal, man. I'm looking behind me right now. I'm not going to flip my camera. I have a whole bookshelf of business books I'm looking up there. I'm looking at the names, the big names that everyone knows up there. I see Ray Dalio. I see Gary Vee. I see a whole bunch of books that I'm looking at on my bookshelf. I don't read anymore, man, and it's just because of a function of time, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I used to read a lot, but here's what I did. I created my own masterclass with my podcast, man.
No,
I've had over 100
I dig it.
curated. I've had over 100 curated 1-hour conversations with industry pros that I learned from every single recording.
Yeah, no, I love
that's
that.
osmosis for me. I listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that because the last two guests, right, Melly, who is a friend of mine, but doing FaceTime photography during this pandemic, and like literally getting people to do an entire photo shoot that she used to do as a portrait photographer with like toilet paper rolls and like spatulas to do lighting effects and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, damn, Melly, you're doing something cool. I'm inspired. I need to chat with you. But these are all becoming a masterclass like that I'm like consciously doing and subconscious, but I'm with you. This is learning for me, man. Like,
Absolutely.
so
It's my master class, and it's so funny too. And I kid around it too. Like, there's a lot of people. And I wrote a post about this last night. Like, everyone's throwing out master classes. Everyone's throwing out. They're trying to get you in their ClickFunnels and try to sell you a course. Everyone's trying to sell you something, and I don't really fault people for that. It's about how they do it.
Right.
But you know what? I always joke around and I spin it back and I literally go, "Hey, you want 100 hours of master class? Here's a link to my show." Right.
Yeah.
Go in there and hear the career story of Joel Lundenfeld. Go in there and hear Claude Silver, Dave Meltzer, Heather Monahan. You have all these like the show I have tomorrow with Hakeem Valleys, who's a former NFL player turned real estate investor. Find out the real story of understanding how to turn 1-2 bedroom unit apartment into an empire.
Yeah.
Right. You want some real shit? Like, here we go. Here's for free. I'm not trying to sell you anything.
Right.
I just want people to get into my brand, get into the ecosystem, and enjoy it.
Yeah, and my last guest Jeff was saying like he kind of noticed that the content quality during this pandemic thought it would go up, and he was a little disappointed that overall it was saturated with just a lot of half-ass content. And why
half-assery, my friend, half-assery.
And
yes, content.
And what I love about what you're doing is it's not half-assed, right? Like, it's consistent. You're booking these guests, and the fact that you're saying all this, you have all this pride in it, well, it shows, my dude. And that's why I appreciate you making the time to come here. And
yeah, man.
So any last words to the guests and kind of
I think the big thing is if you have an itch for content creation, scratch it. There's no better time than now.
Yes, sir.
The barrier to entry is extremely low. I started out with my Yeti mic that Tony has in front of him, and recording on the camera on my laptop, and I still record every single one of my podcasts on my laptop. I have a little Logitech camera. I have it costs me to produce a full podcast from beginning to end under $50 an episode.
Yeah.
But that took work to get there. It took work to figure out my freelance team, to figure out how I'm going to do everything. Trial and error, but I got there. You don't have to have a fancy studio. You don't have to have all the bells and whistles. What you need to have is the drive. You need to have the desire and the want to do it. And the only way to do it is to give it a shot. If you make it 1 episode, 2 episodes, great. At least you tried. If you make it to 3,000 episodes, kudos, right? So just there's something in the middle for everybody. Definitely, keep it up, stay consistent, stay with it, and build your tribe, build a community,
Yes, sir. Thank you for that advice, and thank you for your time. Adam, you are incredible. I would love to connect once all this quarantine stuff is over, whenever I'm in the East Coast, or whenever you're down here. So thank you, and everybody joining the stream, thank you very much. And if you're listening to the podcast, appreciate it. Adam, tell them where they can find your podcast and listen to the episodes.
There you go. How many? Can I tell you something real quick, though? I've been on a couple of shows where the hosts forget to drop the line at the end, like for the guest to plug. Right, it's such a simple thing.
No, like
they do.
Yeah.
I swear to God, and I have to jam it in there, right? So thank you. You guys can find me. I'm on LinkedIn, Adam J. Posner. I live there all day long. I eat, breathe, sleep. LinkedIn. You could find me for the podcast, the Poscast, at www.thepodcast.com, and for all recruiting and talent needs, NHPtalentgroup.com. Those are my 2 brands. Check them out. Tony, thanks for having me on, dude.
No, appreciate it. And everybody, have a good day. And Adam, talk soon.
Take care, Tony. Be good.